I made the decision a long time ago that I would become the adult that I needed as a child. And I have committed to becoming that adult that my child needs and holding the boundaries and not rescuing, not doing the work, challenging and showing up for that child, but not doing their work. And those are big feelings. That's emotionally uncomfortable. I have difficulties separating abusive relationships from healthy ones. I can't tell the difference between love and violence. It all looks the same. That is a poem on page 52 of Rupi Kaur's book, Homebody. Rupi, R-U-P-I, and then Kaur is K-A-U-R, Homebody. She is I believe she's 29, and a poet from Toronto, Ontario. I found that interesting quote because today I wanted to talk about imposter syndrome and rescuing and how this shows up in our lives and also how this shows up in our money and in our businesses, because that is what I am talking a lot about in June. I'm trying to get more organized in the themes for the podcast. So you're going to see me shifting to themes every month or so. And you're also going to notice, if you haven't already, if you've been following me for a while, that everything is connected. And when I started my business, it was really focused on the parent-child relationship. And that just morphed. And as I continue to work with women on a personal level and how they want to feel and realign their lives, whether that is at home or in their work. But then I also noticed how we do the same thing in our work. And we're doing this with all the relationships in our lives. So if I say something and you're like, well, I don't own a business, or that doesn't pertain to me, I want you to also pay attention to why you're looking away from it and how you can use your critical thinking skills to insert yourself in the conversation and insert yourself at the table. Because I think it's really, really important to understand that we're all connected. It is a collective. And when one person wins, everybody wins. When one person changes for the better, one person gets healthier, everybody gets healthier, because it's the ripple effect, especially when we are talking to women, I believe. So, imposter syndrome. I definitely did not do research on this term and where it came from. I'm not a fan of the term. And so many people say to me, like, I have imposter syndrome. And I have also heard people talk about the term imposter syndrome and how it reinforces patriarchy and it keeps women stuck. And it's also very interesting because when I hear people talk about imposter syndrome, they label themselves with it. Like, I needed a diagnosis. Oh, good. I've been diagnosed with imposter syndrome. For me personally, I feel like you need to be mindful of what you're labeling yourself as, because you will keep it. And when you keep it, you are identifying as that type of person. And imposter syndrome to me, by definition is feeling like you're not good enough, like you're not qualified to do something. And, when we look at the gender norms and gender bias and all of that, we have men, we have women, male, female. And I'm talking from I'm not talking like biology or identity, like penis and vagina. I'm talking about how people identify, and I'm not talking about gender identity. I'm talking about kind of like the sociology of it and how people are identified by society, right? Like, you look like a girl, therefore I'm going to treat you like a girl. You are female. You look like a male, therefore I'm going to treat you like male. So more of like how the world perceives us. And I also believe that there's a lot of difference in biology between the female, like biology of their brain, and male. and how our brains are wired differently. Obviously, our hormonal structure is wired differently. So imposter syndrome to me is a very loaded question, because if you have a conversation with the male brain versus the female brain, it's a very different conversation, which is why I find it sometimes difficult to understand how my husband thinks, or my 3 boys. And then when I start listening to the science behind it, I'm like, this makes so much sense. And why I feel men have more confidence than women, because they are very primal and their brain is a one track, and women have a million different ways. And we are emotional beings. So are men. But we also are conditioned to birth and to nurture and to like create life, which is such a beautiful energy. But when we're really disconnected from those parts of ourselves and we're living in a masculine society, we don't think we're good enough, because we're comparing ourselves to like a fish, right? It's like a dog comparing themselves to a fish and going, oh my gosh, like, why am I not like that? You're not supposed to be like that. You were never created to be like that. So a lot of imposter syndrome is we're not in our own lane. We're looking outside of ourselves. So that's my little rant on why I don't like the term imposter syndrome. So today's topic, imposter syndrome and rescuing. And I'm using the definition of imposter syndrome today as like not feeling good enough, not feeling qualified, and rescuing. So you may have heard me talk about this before, rescuing and the drama triangle and how we rescue people. So I believe women do this a lot in parenting. We want to fix our children. We want to take away all of their pain away. We want to do the work for them, because we don't want them to fail, all of that stuff. We don't want them to feel. That's what we want. We don't want other people to feel. So we try to take their pain away, and then we take on the pain, and then we wonder why we're always in pain. And then we judge other people's pain or lack of pain or too much pain and say, I have failed, I have failed. So we over-identify as being everything for everybody. And when you do that, you will convince yourself that you suck and that you're not good enough. And when you do that, you will then create this vicious, unhealthy relationship, which is incredibly violent, which is why I read you that quote from Rupi, is we don't know the difference between violence and love and healthy connection and healthy relationships, because we create a wild codependency in every fucking relationship in our lives, whether it is in our personal or professional lives. And if you have not practiced the skill of how you as a human want to feel in your own life, and leaning into boundaries and stepping into that energy, you will always feel like an imposter, like you are not qualified. And you will try to rescue people to protect your own insecurities. Let me repeat that again. You will rescue people to try to protect your own insecurities. So you're like, Heather, that's a great, sermon. Thank you so much for all of that. But how does this actually manifest and show up in our lives? Okay. How many of you have a partner that you feel like you are parenting? How many of you have made a passive comment, joking or not joking, that you have X amount of children plus one, because that adult in your life, that partner, also acts like a child because they act like they're incapable? If that is you, you have rescuing tendencies and you try to save other people to protect yourself, which is wildly egotistical and wildly selfish, except culturally we've been taught that it's not. Now, you might have to stop the podcast, go back and listen to that again. I'm going to tell you a personal story. And I'm going to tell you the high level of this personal story because I'm still in it. But if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that I've been talking a lot or a little bit about raising a teenager. My boys are 17, 12, and 9. And I would say, actually, somebody made the comment the other day, like, oh, it's so nice that the kids are older. This is much easier, isn't it? And she looked at everyone and everyone was like, yeah, it's easier. And I sat there in tears and I said, this is the most challenging time in my parenting that I've had since day one. And it's also a reminder that, we look at other people and we judge them based on their children's ages, the car that they drive, what they look like, how much money they make, and we have no fucking clue what is happening behind closed doors for somebody else. And then we see the other people and we're judging them, feeling like, oh, their life must be so difficult, and they're the happiest frickin' people in the world. That's what happened to me when I went to a different country years and years ago. I was like, I'm going to be the white girl that saves everybody, which is my privilege coming out. I was in my 20s, and I went there, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, they gave me so much. So here's the point, is your judgments of other people have no... they're just judgments. That's all they are. They're something based on what you are, or what you're feeling. So parenting, story, teenager, rescuing. So here I am, the woman, the author who wrote the book, Dying to be a Good Mother, and who's been coaching parents on parenting for a while and helping women feel in alignment with their lives. And I'm challenged with this developmental phase, and really watching and observing how I need to, I've been practicing what I preach. I have a lot of support, but I also have the support of my community. And one thing that I really value is vulnerability but taking ownership. So I see how people like crawl back into survival mode because they've let their habits slip. And in this kind of like season of my life, I can't let my habits slip. So my boundaries and my like not breaking promises to myself have been intense. And it's not a lot of work, it's just consistency. And that has been interesting to watch and observe how grounding myself and being emotionally uncomfortable with being consistent and wanting what I want and going for how I want to feel has actually benefited me greatly in my parenting. But the rescuer tendencies, I'm a helper. I am somebody who's dedicated my life to wanting to make an impact. And the shadow side of that, if you identify as a helper or a thought leader, or you're in front lines of you're in a caregiving role or industry, the shadow side of that is wanting to do somebody's work for them that they are not willing to do. And so when you are a mother and you're seeing your children struggle and suffer by chosen because of their actions, it is very hard to watch. It is wildly emotionally uncomfortable to watch. And I can tell you by like proof again and again and again that I haven't felt like I'm an imposter because I've finally let go. I let go of it a while ago, but I've been reminded, and almost like more freeing, that it doesn't matter how much you try to control somebody else's human experience and rescue them. They have to be willing to take radical responsibility for how they want to feel and to do their own work. And when you do that, oh my gosh, you get so much time and energy back. So much time and energy back. So imposter syndrome and not enoughness, and I'm not qualified. Well, what makes any human qualified to parent a teenager? If the child was put in your life, you're qualified and you figure shit out as you go on the job. And you have to start thinking about work and your business as the same thing. And you may be listening to this and you're not a business owner. Not all of my clients are. But again, that's the theme of what I've been talking about in June. And the interesting part is like, we can opt out of wanting to make more money in our business, wanting to grow our business, wanting to get it to the next level, but we can't necessarily opt out of parenting. And so what I'm finding is, because I made a decision a long time ago that I will become the adult that I needed as a child. Let me repeat that again. I made the decision a long time ago that I would become the adult that I needed as a child. And I have committed to becoming that adult that my child needs, and holding the boundaries and not rescuing, not doing the work, challenging and showing up for that child, but not doing their work. And those are big feelings. That's emotionally uncomfortable. But in business, it feels the exact same. When you become the type of person that is required in order to see the success that you want and desire, it's not about, you can't back down. It's not about burning out. It's not about 24 hustle. That's not what it's about. It's about doing the thing that you don't want to do for a short amount of time. So, example, in personal life, okay? So I made this commitment in my personal life. My personal life, I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, 20 minutes a day, we're going to read with this child, or we're going to do math, or whatever it is. I don't want to sit there and do that for 20 minutes a day with my child, but I made a commitment to it because I want to become the type of adult or type of parent that I needed as a child. So I sit there for 20 minutes. I'm like, we're going to sit down. And that child is resisting it. No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And I was like, buddy, we got to do this 20 minutes. And then I'm like, okay, let's take a break. Like, you're overwhelmed. Come back. I'm like, we got this. Okay, you know what? We can't do 20 minutes today. Let's do 10 minutes. You know what? Let's just do one page, 5 minutes. As soon as this timer goes out, we're done for the day. And I just break it down. I have to be persistent. I have to chronically show up, even though I'm getting resistance back from that child. But I'm not giving up on the child because I've made a decision to be successful. Okay? Now, let's use money. Growing your business. Same thing. 20 minutes a day, doing emotionally uncomfortable work, outreach, whatever it is that you need to do, right? Like, you know what you need to do. And if you don't, you hire somebody to get help. And you do that for 20 minutes a day. Well, you do that, and guess what happens? You sit there and your resistance pops up. I don't want to do this. This is emotionally uncomfortable. Look, my children need me. Let me get a distraction, blah, 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 blah. But if you haven't made the commitment to be successful, you will actually tell yourself that you're not qualified. I'm not qualified to do this. Who am I? Like, all your thoughts are going to come out. I'm not qualified. I'm not qualified. And then if you have rescuing tendencies, you're going to try to go and find and rescue somebody else to avoid doing your emotionally uncomfortable work. So I always love the connection between parenting and growing a business. I actually think growing a business can be more emotionally uncomfortable than parenting for the sheer reason that I know I won't give up on my kids, but it's easy to give up on a business. So here you are listening to this and you're like, shit, Heather, I feel like you just called me out on all my BS. Here's the thing. If you're willing to do the emotionally uncomfortable work, the emotional work to feel better, to make more money so you can make an impact, so that you can give back to the community and change the world, is that not worth it? Like, is that not so worth it? And you got to dig deeper into your why. And those are the people that are the change makers. So if this is you and you are ready for a revenue breakthrough, emotionally uncomfortable revenue breakthrough, I want you to head on over to heatherchauvin.com/money, MONEY. You have until June 17th to apply. And after you apply, we will, if you qualify, you have to have a 50K a year minimum in your business. Then we will reach out and it's only $200. You get a one-on-one personal success coach. You get a whole bunch of training modules when you join. And then I think it's the 20th to the 24th of June, I go live where you can come. We're going to hang out in a Zoom once a day, and it's going to be live. We're going to do the work, and it's going to be an intimate group. So I'm being very picky on who's joining us, because I truly believe that, this is where the magic happens. And I'm so determined to help women step up and into their power and into their leadership, that if you feel connected to work with me in this capacity, I will never offer it again at this price point. I'm doing this as a beta test. If you actually thought it was shit and you didn't get any results, I will give you your $200 back. And my goal is that you're going to make thousands of dollars in return. So if you're willing to do the work, I'm willing to guide you. So head on over to heatherchauvin.com/money, MONEY. And that's it. I want you to take a real hard look at I'm not qualified, and the imposter syndrome, and the beliefs and the stories that you tell yourself, and your tendency to think that you're not qualified, but rescue other people. And how that doesn't even come from a place of expertise or confidence. It comes from an insecurity. So when we are learning about ourselves and doing the work and healing those wounds, this is where the magic happens, and this is where the breakthroughs happen. So I'll see you there. There it is. You just listened to the Emotionally Uncomfortable podcast. If you want to take this conversation to the next level, head on over to our private Facebook group community, heatherchauvin.com/Facebook. My last name is spelled CHAUVIN. That's heatherchauvin.com/Facebook. Also, if you are a huge fan of this show, please rate and review it on iTunes. Every review helps another woman like you take back control of how she wants to feel and become emotionally uncomfortable. I truly believe the better we feel, the more alive we become. This is how we are going to change the world. And if you've been watching me for a while, if you've been on the fence and you're curious, how can Heather help me? Head on over to heatherchauvin.com/work with me to check out my mastery and mastery business coaching programs. That's heatherchauvin.com/work with me.